The blue sheet is your graphic organizer. We have the trig functions on the front, your definition of sine, opposite over hypotenuse, cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent, opposite over adjacent. So we have this done. Don't worry about this bottom part. Just make sure you have SOHCAHTOA, okay, on your blue sheet. Now we're going to use the graphic organizer on the back, and there's a flow chart on the back to help you do some problem solving. So flip the blue sheet over to the back. And I need you to look at this because we're going to use this on our word problems to make sure we're doing the right part. All right, so it says you can only use trigonometric ratios with right triangles. So that's the first thing you're going to check, or first thing you're going to draw when we do these problems. Then it says make sure your calculator's in degree mode. They are. And you have two options. Look at the left side for me. It says if you're finding a side length, only one side is given. So if you're finding a side length, only one side is given. There are three things you have to do. First, you have to label the right triangle. That's the first thing I'm going to check for. Second, you have to use your trig ratio. Set up your trig ratio. That's the second part. And then third is depending on your ratio. When x is on top of the proportion, you multiply. When x is on the bottom of the proportion, you divide. So this is the third thing I'm going to check for. So it's label, trig ratio, where is x? So they're showing you an example of that. Look at number 17. The first step is to label. So you circle the 75, that's your angle. Okay? X in relationship to that angle would be what part? Adjacent. So put that as adjacent. The 39 is what part? The hypotenuse. You label that as hypotenuse. So then we have to write the trig ratio. What is the trig ratio that deals with adjacent and hypotenuse? Cosine. So look what they did here. They did the cosine of 75 equals x over 39. Okay? Do y'all see that now x is on top? Do you see how x is on the top? Okay, so what they did was they went ahead and multiplied. 39 times the cosine of 75 equals x. This is what we call, this part is showing the calculator is ready. It's going to ask you that on the worksheet today. What is the calculator ready part? It's showing what you would have to type in into the calculator to get your answer. Now, when they type it in, we get this answer. It says round to the nearest tenth. That's only one decimal place. And then we have it rounded. Okay? Now, look at the example to the right. Here, circle the angle. So what angle needs to be circled? The 50. Now we got to label the parts. 5 in relationship to the angle. Just put that on my desk. What is that part? That is adjacent. Label that on your notes, on your blue sheet. What is the x in relationship to the part? Label the x hypotenuse. You need to get out your blue sheet. Get rid of the headphones. Thank you. And get out the blue sheet. The blue sheet has this on the back. If you don't have it, there's an extra one over there. No, this is very the first thing we did was this. It was like over a week ago. All right, so adjacent hypotenuse, that's cosine. So if we look here, x is on the bottom. So what do we do when x is on the bottom? Divide, and they did that. This part right here, 5 divided by the cosine of 75, that is the calculator rated part. Again, they round to the nearest tenth. You need to copy this because what you're going to check, or what I'm going to check for, is the labeling, the calculator ready part, and then your answer. Uh-oh. Now, so this is when we're trying to find the side lengths. Only one side is given. To find the reference angle, the missing angle, 2 sides are given. And it tells you have to use the inverse when finding the angle. They give you an example that sine, I like to say -1, cosine -1. But the x should be on the inside. So here's x, here's the only two sides that they give you. What part is 4 to x? That is opposite. You still have to label. What part is 5? Hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse is sine, so sine of x equals 4 over 5. X equals sine inverse, showing the inverse of 4 over 5. That's the calculator ready part. I need you to round to the nearest degree. Means to round to the nearest whole number. So on the example, they did that. They got 53.13, but they're going to round to the nearest whole number. That's why it's just 53 degrees. Keep this side of the organizer out. We're going to refer to it for today's lesson. You need to get the worksheet, trig word problems. That's what we're going to do today. I'm going to give it to you. You have a quiz to make up after we start this. What I just did right now, like, yeah, all the trick stuff. Yeah, what we did, the ratio, calculator. Okay, here we go. Put your name on this. This will be graded. Each problem, draw a diagram if one is not provided. So if there's one not provided, you will have to draw a diagram. You're going to label the diagram, write a trig ratio equation, rewrite the equation so it's calculator ready. That's what I was talking about before. And then solve it. Round answers to the nearest tenth. Okay? Nearest tenth is going to be for sides. Nearest whole number or nearest degree will be for angles. We're going to keep that pattern. Now, the blue sheet, the graphic organizer, the flow chart will tell you what to do. Make sure you're setting it up right. The first thing we have to do is make sure we label correctly. On number 1, it says a ladder 14 feet long rests against the side of a building. The base of the ladder rests on the level ground 2 feet from the side of the building. What angle does the ladder form with the ground? Okay, so they've kind of given us a picture. We got to label it based on what's given. So the hypotenuse is 14. I'm going to go ahead and put my right angle. The hypotenuse is the 14 because that's the ladder leaning up against the building. All right. It says that the ladder rests level on the level ground 2 feet from the side of the building. The bottom would be 2 feet. So label that too. They want us to, what angle does the ladder form with the ground? Between the 14 and the 2 is the angle we're trying to find. So that's where the x would be. Because they're asking what angle does the ladder form with the ground. That's the x. Now, with that being said, because the problem says what angle, are we going here to find the side length or we're finding the reference angle? Reference angle. So it tells us right here that we're going to use the inverse trig function to solve it. Okay? We still have to determine that trig function. So if you go back to our drawing, circle our angle. We know 14 is the hypotenuse and 2 is adjacent. So what trig function deals with hypotenuse and adjacent? Cosine. So if you forgot, remember we're using our SOHCAHTOA. That's what we got to use. So A and H would be cosine. There's the A and H. So look, here's cosine of x equals 14 over 2, but calculator ready because we know we're going to do the inverse. X equals cosine negative 1, parentheses, and I wrote that wrong, 2 over 14. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Sorry about that. Because I wrote it wrong the first time. It's adjacent over hypotenuse. Yeah. All right, so this is the part that I have to see. I have to see the calculator ready, the stuff that you would put in your calculator on your sheet. And then I want our answer to the nearest degree. Okay? So when we go to our calculator, Go trig, cosine inverse, and we're doing 2 divided by 14. We're going to round to the nearest degree. So what would that be? 82 degrees. Good job. Oops. 82 degrees. Yeah, 82. So number 1 is 82. Okay? 82 degrees. And I could put the degree symbol. All right, so let's look at number 2. A 20-foot ladder leaning against the building forms an 18-degree angle with the side of the building. How far is the base of the ladder from the base of the building? So now we got to label this one a little different. 24 is still the hypotenuse because that's the ladder leaning up against the building. So label that. Did you pick this up? Okay. 18 goes here because it's with the building. So the 18 is up top. They want to know how far is the base of the ladder from the base of the building. That's what we're trying to find. Over the opposite of the 18. It's at the bottom. It's on the ground. Okay, so on this one, are we finding an angle or are we finding a side link? We're finding a side link. So we're still going to do our regular steps. Circle the angle. X would be opposite. 24 would be hypotenuse. Okay? We pick our trig function. What trig function goes with that? Sine. We have to write the trig ratio equation. The sine of 18 equals opposite over hypotenuse, which is 24. Now, on our flow chart, x is on top, so it tells us we're going to multiply. Okay, so we were finding the side link. We did the trig ratio. We see x is on top. It tells us to multiply to solve it. So to show the calculator ready part, we're going to show the multiplication. X would be 24 times the sine of 18, and that's what we put in our calculator. X is on top. We multiply. I'm going to round to the nearest tenth. So 18. Is that right? I forgot. No, 24 times the sine of 18. All right, so 24 times the sine of 18. I'm going to round to the nearest tenth. 22. Whoa. Yeah, I did. 24 times the sine of 18. 7.4. Okay, that's a good point, though, Elias. Okay, so this is what I want you to know. Let's say on your test on Thursday, you put this 22.9, but you have this part, the calculator ready part. This shows that you know what to do to the problem. This tells me that someone typed in something wrong. So I can justify still giving you credit if you're showing the correct calculator ready part. That's why I'm asking you to write that on your paper. Does that make sense? Okay, so we should get 7.4 though. That's the right answer. 7.4, right? Just to the nearest tenth. You just do one decimal place. Okay. All right, now, number 3. They gave you a partial diagram. A road rises 35 feet for every 400 horizontal feet. What is the measure of the angle of the road formed with the horizontal? So where's the 35 and the 400 going to go? 400 is the base for sure because this is horizontal, and that has to be the horizontal right there. But 35, it rises 35 feet. Yeah, so this is the vertical. The road would be the hypotenuse. So it's like thinking your slope. Rise over run, okay? So we're trying to find the angle that the road forms with the horizontal. That is going to be here in the bottom left. So on our graphic organizer, it tells us basically if you're finding a side link or if we're finding an angle. Okay, so if it's angle, we know we're going to do this inverse trig function. What was that, Elias? You had it. It is tangent, yes, because if you circle your angle, we have opposite, we have adjacent. Well, if you don't, it helps you decide if you're going to do inverse or if you're going to multiply divide. Okay? So this is tangent of x equals 30, opposite over adjacent. But because we're doing inverse, because it says we're finding the angle, use tan inverse, x would be tan inverse negative 135 over 400. And that's the calculator ready part. Okay, so that's what we put in our calculator. Now, on this sheet too, on this graphic organizer, oops, it tells us that once you do your inverse, your answer needs to round it to the nearest whole number. Huh? Yes, 5 degrees. 5 degrees. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Now, if there's no label, nothing drawn for you, you're going to have to draw it. For all the problems here, I don't know if you noticed, but they all are using right triangles. So just get in the habit of just draw a right triangle. It does not have to be in scale. Just make sure you identify the right angle. Put your box. So always, if there's no labeling, no drawing, no diagram, draw a right triangle. Number 4, a 32-foot ladder leans against the building, touches the side of the building 26 feet above the ground. What is the measure of the angle formed by the ladder in the building? So think about where the numbers we're going to have to go here. Yeah, hypotenuse is 32. We're finding, what's the building? Where's the building? Yeah, they're right. The 26 feet. And we're finding the angle that the ladder makes with the building. So that's at the top. Okay? All right, so if we're trying to find the angle, we have the adjacent and the hypotenuse. It is cosine, but what are we going to have to do to find the angle? The inverse, yep. So I'm going to just go ahead and show it. X is equal to the cosine inverse of 26 over 32. You have to show the inverse. Sure. Thank you. All right, so we round to what on this problem? What do we round to? Nearest degree, so what will we get? Yeah, 36. Okay, 36 degrees. They're like putting stuff in the calculator to get it. I don't know if you noticed that. All right, again, no drawing. So what do we draw? Right triangle. All right. Directions for the use of a ladder recommend that for maximum safety, the ladder should be placed against the wall at a 75-degree angle with the ground. If the ladder is 14 feet long, how far from the wall should the base of the ladder be? So where is the 75 degree? Yeah, it's because it's with the ground. So it's at the bottom. If the ladder is 14 feet long, how far from the wall should the base of the ladder be placed? Where would the ladder be? What part is the ladder? The hypotenuse is the ladder because it's leaning. We want to know how far from the wall it needs to be. Yeah, x would be the base. The bottom would be the x. Okay, that's the base. All right, so we have our angle. Now we label the parts in relationship to the angle. We got adjacent, yes. We got hypotenuse. We got cosine, that's right. So the cosine of 75 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Now, we multiply. How do we know that, Christian? You're right. Because x is on top. All right, so x equals 14 times the cosine of 75. That's the calculator ready part. That's the part you can still get full credit if you show it. Okay? So let's type that part in. 14 times the cosine of 75. Yeah, 3.6. We're going to round to the nearest 10. 3.6. All right, let's look at this last one together. A kite is held by a taut string pegged to the ground. The string is 40 feet long, and the angle of depression from the kite is 33 degrees. Suppose that the ground is leveled. Find the vertical distance from the ground to the kite. So let's think about. Yes, 33. I'm glad we did that. 33 has to be at the bottom. Because it has to be with the horizontal. I know it says depression, but it's got to be with the horizontal line. Get in the habit of making sure it's at the bottom left if you draw your triangle here. Because you see this would be the triangle. All right, what would be this 40 feet long, the hypotenuse? That's the string. And then x is the height of the kite. Yeah. So we have the angle. This x is the opposite. The 40 is the hypotenuse. So what deals with opposite and hypotenuse? Sine. So we do sine of 33 equals x over 40. Yes. X is on top. So what do we do to solve it? You multiply. So we would do 40 times the sine of 33. Put that in your calculator. What? Did I do that right? I think I probably put 33 instead of 32. Oh. No, it's not. There it goes. 21.8. Alright. Okay. Do we have